If you've been on and off dieting for years, but you're not losing belly fat for good, this needs to stop. In my 9 years of coaching busy men, I've seen the same patterns over and over. It's not about being lazy, but doing the things I'm going to explain in this video wastes years of effort without getting and staying lean. So I'll show you the mistakes that are keeping men stuck at 20% body fat and above, and then what you can do instead to finally get lean and maintain it. For many guys, it always starts the same. They decide to finally get serious, so they set like some extreme goal, like losing 10 kilos or 20 pounds in 6 to 8 weeks. But what they don't realize is just how big of a deficit that actually requires. Because 1 kilo or 2.2 pounds of body fat equals 7,700 calories. So to drop 10 kilos or 22 pounds, that's 77,000 calories spread over 6 weeks, which is 42 days. That's an 1,800 calorie deficit every single day, which simply isn't realistic for most people unless you're eating next to nothing or you're doing some crazy fasting while still somehow keeping your daily movement really high. Instead, the smarter and far more sustainable approach is working on this in phases. So you drop the first 10 pounds or 5 kilos, which is usually the easiest. Then instead of rushing straight into the next one to lose more and pushing yourself harder, actually prove that you can keep that 10 pounds or 5 kilos off for at least 1 to 2 weeks before starting the next phase. If you've got work, travel, events, or just a stressful patch of life coming up, then you might need an extra week or two so that you can just maintain things before pushing hard again. And that is perfectly fine. This is not a race. But when you start with unachievable goals and then you push even harder, when the scale doesn't respond, you eventually hit a wall, then you lose that momentum, you feel demotivated and eventually kind of give up, which means you're going to restart a new diet next year or whenever that is, just to lose the same fat that came back on from the last diet. And if you even do manage to lose weight this way, the next problem is where everything's going to collapse. After reaching your fat loss milestone, whether it's 30, 40, or 50 pounds, most guys think they're done, even if they're not as lean as they expected to be. Then it's really easy to slip back into the old habits instead of locking in your results. And because the new weight and habits aren't stable yet, you can rebound really fast. Suddenly, you feel like you've f***ed up and you failed and you can't do this, and everything just starts to crumble, right? Not because you're weak, but because the approach had no succession. A phase to slowly return up to your maintenance solves this. It's also called a reverse diet. It gives your body a chance to stop the deficit and then you gradually adjust to higher calories without putting on more body fat. But if you're not lean enough when you start this, doing this isn't going to get you leaner unless you significantly ramp up your training and your daily calorie burn above the levels that you've been at. This is also a good time to consider doing a lean bulking phase to prioritize muscle growth and strength. However, I doubt that you want to get fat again. And when men skip this succession phase, they almost always regain what they had just lost, which then forces them to restart another diet months and years later, repeating the same cycles again and again. But if you have actually reached your goal and you are as lean as you want to be, then this is the perfect time to do this reverse diet phase. You simply incrementally increase your calories while closely monitoring your leanness and your strength gains over time. And if you start gaining more fat, not just weight, then you know, okay, I'm in a surplus now. So you just kind of scale it back a little bit. And this can be as simple as 100 calorie increments to testing this for 1 to 2 weeks at a time and being consistent. This is harder than it sounds because most people push so hard and so fast at doing fat loss, they haven't given their mind enough time to drop the old habits and the cravings that used to keep them stuck. So once the fat loss diet ends, then the deprivation drives them to eat more than they can handle. And fat regain is always easiest right after reaching your goal. Because you've been in a deficit for a long time, your metabolism has adapted slightly. But it's not just discipline or going slow that can keep you stuck in dieting for years. I'll explain why. Albert Einstein supposedly said insanity is the definition of doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And when it comes to dieting, I would have to agree. The problem is many people start a diet that will never work long term, but it will work well in the short term. I'm talking about diets like keto, carnivore, extended fasting, paleo, Atkins, raw food, shake diets, whatever the trend is for the month. I'm not saying all those diets are bad, by the way, but for most busy guys, they simply do not last. However, they do work for a few weeks, maybe a few months. So the assumption becomes the diet works, I just wasn't disciplined enough. But if a tool has failed you once, twice, maybe even 3 times, then it's the wrong tool for the job because it doesn't fit your lifestyle or your preferences. So it's easy to get trapped in this loop of, you do keto for 2 months, you lose a bunch of weight, but then you fall off the wagon because of Christmas parties and whatever, you regain some fat. And then because it worked the first time, worked for that 1 to 2 months, then you do keto again next year and you just keep repeating the same pattern, lose, fall off, regain over and over. And busy men with travel, business, kids, social commitments, all this can't necessarily follow rigid structures forever. And the more times this cycle repeats, the more discouraged you're going to feel, the more pressure you're going to pile onto yourself to be perfect the next time that you do it, which leads directly to the next trap that silently destroys being consistent without you even realizing it. So if one meeting in your day runs late, do you cancel the rest of your day, go home, curl up into bed and cry about it? I hope not. But when it comes to dieting, men place extremely high standards on themselves. If they eat a chocolate, if they have a wine, or they grab a handful of chips, they act like they've completely ruined everything and need to write off the entire week until next Monday. But that is not how fat loss works. There is no on and off switch. Whether you eat Twinkies for breakfast or a kale salad for dinner every day, at any point in time, you're in one of 3 states. You're either maintaining the body fat you have, you're gaining more body fat, or you're reducing body fat. That's it. You don't need fresh, organic daily produce from farmers markets meals or hours in the kitchen prepping meals like Jamie Oliver.
Hi guys, welcome to the Ministry of Food. I've got a bit of a bonus, but it's not hard. It's just over 1 centimetre thick, so it's not wobbling. Lovely. And you're going to rub it backwards and forwards again and again.
Just to lose fat. You just need consistency. And if that sounds too simple, you are overcomplicating it. And if you expect yourself to eat cleaner than a bodybuilder who is 1 week out from competition,
8 o'clock in the morning, I'll have fish and a rice cake. At 10 o'clock, I'll have fish. At 12 o'clock, I'll have fish and a rice cake.
you're going to feel like a failure every time that you don't eat like that. And it's this perfectionist mindset doesn't just break your diet, it sets you up for another problem that can instantly drain your progress. So most guys stick to their plan from Monday to Friday. They feel very disciplined, and then things start to loosen up on Friday night, which can spill over to Saturday and sometimes even Sunday. So it's like this domino effect. Being so strict during the week makes it easy to fall into the trap of thinking that you can splurge a little bit on the weekend. But come Monday morning, you're heavier than you were on Friday. And now you feel like shit. And if this keeps happening, it simply means that you're neutralizing your deficit, or you're tipping into a slight surplus, which means that you're not losing fat at all. And despite thinking that you were good during the week, this is going to keep you stuck, just like it keeps many guys stuck at 20-25% body fat for years by being consistently inconsistent. You know, works, dinners, birthdays, travel, football nights, drinks with the clients. None of these are the problem. You can still get lean doing this if you eat more on weekends, as long as your overall weekly deficit and your weekly average weight is trending down. The problem is not knowing how to navigate these higher days without wiping out your entire week. And what makes this even tougher is that these moments trigger another pattern that drives more overeating, far more than people like to admit. You can have the perfect plan during the day, but if work stress hits at nighttime, or you're exhausted after a long, stressful week, suddenly the pantry and the fridge become a coping mechanism. And many guys don't want to admit that they're emotional, stress-driven eaters. Many do as well. It's incredibly common, especially for busy dads and professionals who are working a lot, high stress and limited downtime. Food just gives this quick hit of comfort, a break, a reward after a long day. And often none of that shows up in the meal plan you thought you were following. But Really, the problem isn't the food, it's the unconscious patterns behind it. When stress is driving your eating, it becomes almost impossible to stay consistent because the trigger is more powerful than your conscious choice. The emotional pain overrides your good intentions. The solution, though, is not to beat yourself up. Don't punish yourself. There's clearly some unmet emotional needs that need support. And typically, these emotional patterns were formed decades ago, even in childhood. So stuff like therapy or deep inner work can help unwind these. But the real issue is that we really want to face these root causes of the stress and the emotions. But when we do, it's very short-term discomfort for long-term freedom. And this pattern alone can keep you stuck above 20% body fat, even when everything else looks good enough. But even deeper than stress eating is something that most men don't notice because it's so familiar. They're so close to see it, which I'll explain next. Most guys don't realize how good they would feel at 12 to 15% body fat. Better energy, sleep, confidence, better blood markers, performance in work, in the gym, and just life would be great. Everything improves. However, one of the biggest reasons men stay stuck is because they have normalized being in that 20 to 25% body fat. It doesn't feel urgent. It doesn't feel extremely bad because everyone else around them is the same or bigger. It just feels normal. But once you experience this leaner level, you realize how much your old normal was actually holding you back. And this mindset alone wastes years because if you don't believe that feeling amazing is available to you, then you never can consistently go after it. And the truth is, staying lean isn't just about habits because without this last thing I'm going to explain, your habits will never stick. Some may not agree, but I believe if you truly nail what I'm about to talk about, you will never have an issue with being fat. If deep down you still see yourself as someone who's trying to lose weight, giving it a crack, hoping, praying, wishing, and all this, you're always going to fall back to the same old patterns. But when you start asking, what would the lean version of me do? How would he think? How would he feel? Then you can start to develop this new identity. Because if you see yourself as the guy who can't lose weight and is overweight for a whole long list of reasons, then all of your feelings and your thoughts and your actions are going to be based on that over the long term. It's like still thinking yourself as the guy on a diet instead of the lean man who simply eats and trains like a lean guy. If you said to me,
Zach, do you want a beer?
Saying no is the easiest thing because I don't identify as a drinker anymore. It's not what I naturally do, unless it's a conscious choice and I want to enjoy a drink. This doesn't happen overnight though. And if you've never been lean, you might think, well, how the hell can I identify as a lean guy when I'm overweight? Well, it's like any habit. It takes practice again and again, kind of like the ocean crashing onto a rock cliff headland. Over time, that rock is going to change shape because of the repetition of the water. And it just so happens that in a way where you don't really notice the change until you look back 6 to 12 months later and you're like, oh shit, I don't even do those things anymore. Admittedly, this can be one of the hardest things to do. Harder than a diet, harder than a tough workout program, but it's the only thing that locks in the physical changes. Otherwise, anyone can drop 30 to 50 pounds, get lean, build muscle, but if they don't own that identity, it's just going to be a temporary character they're playing until the show's over, and then they keep repeating the same things year after year instead of finally becoming that lean guy. And if this is something you want one-to-one coaching and accountability with, my metabolic recomp method is designed for busy men who want to get and stay lean with a busy lifestyle. To get more info, tap the link in the description and you can read more about that. Or if you prefer to go this at your own pace, you can get all my systems in the Business Body Blueprint routine. Link is also in the description. After you do that, go watch this video next to see what men's body fat percentages really look like.